Well, oh boy, where should I start with this one? I'm going to tell you a story. This goes back, well, actually, this is back when I was in school, in grade school, in the 1970s. I started school in September of 1973, and I finished school in June of 1987. That's grade school right through high school. When I started school in 1973, nuns were still very common, and of course I was a Roman Catholic, so I went to what was called a separate school, which was a Catholic school. The Catholic school system at that time was called the separate school system. I went to a school in Perth, Ontario, called St. John's Separate School, and anyway, this is a story about some of the teachers that we had there, specifically some of the Sisters of Providence, who were, that was an order of nuns, and in Eastern Ontario, I think they were pretty much the biggest order of nuns. I could be wrong about that. They were the ones that I saw the most in my area anyway, and that I had the most dealings with. Of course, there were gray nuns and there were different orders of nuns, but specifically these were the Sisters of Providence, of which I have an aunt who is a member. I have an aunt, my Aunt Dorothy is actually a nun, and she's with the Sisters of Providence, although she is now retired, so they do retire, and she has retired, although she'll be a nun for life. She's always going to be a sister. But she's now a retired sister. Much the same as a priest who retires is still a priest, but he's a retired priest, so he doesn't have active duties anymore like he did when he was a priest. Same thing with my Aunt Dorothy. My Aunt Dorothy did different jobs for her career as a Sister of Providence. In fact, she was the head, and I may not get this just right, but at the end of her career, at least, she was the head of plant and maintenance and all that for the Mother House in Kingston, Ontario, called Heathfield. That's a big place there, and that's a lot of responsibility because you have to you're in charge of the cleaning staff and the kitchen staff and the car pool, the motor pool, and the grounds, all the people who look after the grounds and stuff, that cut the lawns and do all that stuff, and maintenance people and everything. Those were all her responsibility. So, it's a big job anyway, and a lot of people think that these people don't work, but they do, and they actually work pretty hard. And I can't say I'm always in agreement with everything that has gone on with the Catholic Church. I have issues with the Catholic Church, like a lot of people do, and disagreements and so on. But I'll tell you, there are still a lot of very good people within the Catholic Church, and that isn't said enough. We focus a lot on the bad people, and we should, but let's also focus on the good, because there is good there too. Anyway, that's just my opinion. You can take it or leave it, but that's certainly not to take away from the bad, because there's been a lot of bad, and the bad, when it's happened, has been horrific. So I'm certainly not saying that doesn't exist or trying to discount that. But this is the story of the people that I knew growing up who were teachers in my school. The different people that I knew, the different personalities, and so on. I'm going to start with one of my favorite people in the world that I ever knew, and that is Sister Marguerite O'Neill. And Sister Marguerite O'Neill was a very gentle person, a very soft-spoken person. We kids weren't used to adults being that way, and we used to run on her a bit, unfortunately. I'm ashamed to say we did that, but we did. And anyway, we'd take advantage where we could, I guess. And Sister Marguerite O'Neill, anyway, was a very, very kind-hearted and very gentle person. And one thing that she would do, though, in order to keep us in line if we really got out of hand, which we did sometimes in her class because we knew we could get away with it, or we thought we could anyway, is if we got to the point where she just felt like she had to do something, she'd take her shoes off. And you know, some people just have feet that stink. And Sister Marguerite O'Neill was one of those people. And she'd take her shoes off and the room would fill with the smell of feet. And I'll tell you, that worked better than any frets or any slapping or strapping or anything else that they might do to us. And in those days, they could slap us and they could strap us. But we weren't nearly as afraid of that as we were of that smell when she'd take off her shoes. So that was the thing anyway. It worked. It was effective. It worked really well. Anyway, she was a very kind-hearted person. And she's, you know, these people are all gone now. They're all passed away. My Aunt Dorothy, who wasn't a teacher, but who I talked about earlier, she's still alive. But, I mean, these teachers that I'm talking about, they're all gone now. As far as I know, there's one that I'm not sure about. She may still be alive, but I have my doubts. And that would be Sister Kathleen Morell. Again, another very nice person. She was a math genius. There really wasn't anything she couldn't do with numbers. She had a mind like a computer. And she had a big nose. Now, this is the other thing we used to do. We gave them all nicknames, but of course we never said these to their faces. Sister Marguerite O'Neill was a very kind woman, but she wasn't a very nice-looking woman. She was very tall and gaunt-looking, and just had a kind of a gray complexion, and we used to call her Herm. H-E-R-M, like Herman Munster from the old, if anybody remembers the old Munsters television show. That was her nickname. We used to call her Herm. Behind her back, of course, never to her face. Sister Kathleen Morell, though, the math genius, we used to call her Nose. Again, behind her back. Never. I'm sure they knew what we called them, though, but we thought we were getting by. We thought we were fooling them, you know, because we never dared say it to their faces. But yeah, we used to call her Nose because she had kind of a small head with an oversized nose, so she was called Nose anyway. Then there was Sister Bernice Boyle, and I honestly can't remember ever having a nickname for her. I don't think we had a nickname for her, but she was tough. Sister Bernice Boyle, she was the one who would hit you. And I remember she'd get mad. She was a redhead. Underneath her habit, she had flaming red hair. And sometimes you'd see a little bit of it poking out or whatever, and you'd know. And she had a redhead's temper. And I remember she'd do nun curses. She'd slam her yardstick down on her desk, and she'd just roar, "Jesus, Mary, Joseph!" Just like that, you know. And that yardstick slamming down on the desk, I'll tell you, that'd startle you. That'd get your attention. And I don't really think she wanted to be a nun. I think it was kind of pushed on her. It was just circumstances or pressure or whatever. And she really wasn't suited to that life, you know. And looking back on it, we were kind of hard on her in the sense that we judged her harshly for being the way she was because she was so angry. But I don't really think she was a horrible person. I think she was just very frustrated. So there is that. Anyway, I can't remember us ever having a nickname for her, and I'm pretty sure if we had one, I would remember. But that was Sister Bernice Boyle. We also had Sister Loretta Mcandrews. Sister Loretta Mcandrews was our principal. And she was quite a nice lady again, very fair person, really kind of a gentle person, but she could be harsh when she needed to be. And her nickname was Rosie. And the reason we called her Rosie is because her face would turn beet red when she got angry. You'd just see the color. Her face would just flush, you know, red, and you'd know she was mad. Go right from her chin right up into her ears, you know, and you'd know. And that was Sister Loretta Mcandrews, and she was our principal. She was really good because she would listen to us. And that was an era when children really weren't listened to. And if you got into any trouble and you had to go to her office, she'd always sit you down and hear your side of the story before she made any decisions about what she was going to do about it, you know. And she was very fair that way. She was really kind to me. I really loved Sister Loretta Mcandrews. And I'll tell you what happened with Sister Loretta Mcandrews. In 1977, she left our school to go to Guatemala to help the orphan children. See, in Guatemala at that time, the police were murdering street children. There were a lot of kids just living on the street, and the police would come at night and kill them because they were interfering with commerce. They were outside the stores begging and